Hey friends, Kevin here with the big question of the day. When are we going to get the results of Pauline Pusser's autopsy? Now, this has been going on for a long time. Her body was exhumed on or around Valentine's Day. They reinterred her back into the earth, I believe in early April. This seemed like a long time in between anyway for whatever they did. But here we are, even since they have put her back into the ground, we are approaching 6 months at the time I am filming this. We are way past 6 months from the time they did the original exhumation. This seems like a long period of time, and no information that I know of has come out about this. Now, there were a lot of questions about why they were doing this to begin with. One of the things, and I believe this is going to turn out to be right, is they had and they wanted to do a ballistics test. But what this amounts to is, at this time in 1967, an autopsy was not done. So, knowing there were still bullets in the body, this is the reason for the exhumation, in order to retrieve those bullets to be able to do ballistics testing. Now, there's a lot of conspiracy theories floating around about her husband, of course, Sheriff Buford Pusser. Did he do it? Did he not have anything to do with it? Why was this not done back at the time? Did he pull some magic strings to make sure an autopsy wasn't done at the time? And you have to remember, at the time that this happened, he was injured also and was transported to another hospital far away. And it's hard for people to understand now, but back at the time, and we're talking the 1960s, and it was this way into the 70s and early 80s, in these rural places like this, things just were not done the same way. And there are still places in the South where the county coroner is an elected position, and you don't have to have any medical experience whatever. So for some of you that don't live in our part of the world, this may seem strange to you, but it really isn't. I'm going to share some of my thoughts, but I want to hear your opinions down in the comments. First of all, whether you think this autopsy should have been done or not. We are talking beyond 50 years. And while it's possible for a properly embalmed body to survive that, that's still pushing the limits, at least according to anyone that I've ever talked to that has anything to do with this kind of stuff. Bones, at least, and we're dealing with bullets or bullet fragments, so even though it may not be pleasant, it's still possible, still doable. But the thing is, should this have been done at all? Because the majority of the potential players in this whole scenario, from something that happened that long ago, they have already passed on to the other side. They are no longer walking this earth. While it would be nice to have some final answers, in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? Personally, I am for solving crimes. Now, there's a lot of rumors that there was one person left in this family, I believe could have been one of her brothers, who would have to be really up in years also, that kind of made this decision, maybe was talked into this somehow. There's thoughts that this gentleman was talked into this by one or more people who have always kind of pushed this conspiracy thing. There are people that make money off of this, writing books, different things, keeping this stuff stirred up. And you keep it stirred up better if you can push the conspiracy theory angle. If you can push that, her husband did this. Who knows? Maybe he did. I wasn't there. I will say this, I dismiss most of this conspiracy theory stuff, whether it has to do with Buford and Pauline Pusser, or whether it has to do with a lot of other things. I think you can logically dispute and disprove many facts. But I will say, having been to these locations, having been to that church and on that route on New Hope Road, and there are some people who brought up the points that trying to do this in their vehicle and have another vehicle, a friend, chase them, that because of the distance and the road condition, it would be pretty hard for this to have really played out the way that it was told that it played out, and the way that it was shown to have played out, of course, in that movie. Having been at that location, there's a part of me that kind of agrees with that theory, that this car bouncing out from behind that church, managing to catch up in that, what I would call a short distance, knowing how cars were back at that time, all of this stuff, I don't care. These giant engines cars had, big heavy cars, it wasn't like today. You didn't have these things doing 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. But the assumption has always been that the assault car came from behind that church. Maybe that car was not at that church. Maybe that car was somewhere else along that path. Maybe that assumption that it pulled out from the church is incorrect. So there are a lot of theories and a lot of potential options as far as what really happened and how this thing went down that day. And you have to take the family into account also, although basically the only family that's left maybe is this brother of hers. Now there may be nieces and nephews and things, but basically everyone else in this scenario, this family scenario, has also passed away in the last few years. So while I certainly am for protecting families' rights in some of these murder investigations, I don't know that that really applies when you are past the 50-year mark on trying to solve a crime. Let me know what your opinion is on that. Does the length of time matter? Is it different when you're trying to solve a crime that happened to someone 2 years ago? Their friends and family, of course, are going to be very emotionally involved in this, and 50 years ago. So again, the big question, what is taking so long for these results to be made public? Now here are some theories, and I don't know this. I can tell you in one of the neighboring states to Tennessee, and I'm sure there is the occasional time that they can speed this up for some reason, but basically anything that's done, a ballistics test, fingerprint matches, identifying pills that were in a baggie, in that state, it generally takes them 6 months to get the results back, supposedly from their state department that does all of these tests. So you have a situation in this state where people sit in jail if they can't bond out month after month after month, and they go into court every month or two with a court date, and the judge, of course, puts the case off because the evidence isn't back from the state. I don't know if that's done intentionally because it was that way 25 years ago and it's that way today. Maybe they feel like, hey, at least by the time we really get these people to trial, they've at least served 6 or 8 months in jail, even if they managed to get off on some technicality. It's a weird situation, but I bring that up to say that there are states that it takes a long time to get results back. However, I don't know it's that way in Tennessee, and in a high-profile case, you would think this would be done a little bit faster, and you would think there would be something from the state of Tennessee, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, that would want to keep the public kind of updated on this, because there are a lot of people who have interest in this story. After all, there were books, many books over the years. There were the movies back in the day. There have been documentaries and things made on this. And all of these things, and no offense, but the family did make money off of this stuff. So I think it's okay to kind of push to have these results out there, whatever they are. Now, when we finally get the results, what are they going to prove? Who was the owner of this particular, at that time, that they are trying to match these ballistics to? Is it going to be one of the suspects from back in the day? Is it, as several people have been pushing the whole time, is this going to be something that was owned or in the possession of Buford Pusser at the time this occurred? And let's say this is a Sheriff Pusser situation. Even if a ballistics match was made to that item that he owned at some point, can you really prove that he had this in his possession that day? So let me know what you think. Let me know your opinion. Even when we get these results back, are they actually going to be enough to finally solve this crime? Let me know your thoughts down below, and let me say this. I am not an expert on this stuff. I do not claim to be an expert on this stuff. I do not write books or do anything that I make a ton of money off of this stuff. So I don't have an agenda here. I just think it is interesting. And I have been lucky enough to spend time in those locations. I have been lucky enough to be in that area and be able to drive that same road where this incident occurred. And to me, it is all a part of history. So there are other videos related to Buford Pusser that are on this channel, because this is kind of an outlet for me for some history stuff, but this is not a Buford Pusser channel by any means. There are other things that are on this channel, just things, places, parts of American history that I find interesting, and hopefully you will find interesting also.